Thank you everyone so much for joining the Snoke Show. Today we have special guest Frazier Danger. How you doing, Frazier Danger?
How we doing, guys?
Awesome. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. I'm excited for this conversation. I know I want to talk a lot about Earth 2 and a lot about some of the things that you've said in the past, and we'll just get right into it. But first of all, how you doing, man?
Oh man, it's excellent. It's Florida, right? So sunny, no masks. You walk around just doing whatever you want. Nobody bothers you. It's awful. It's terrible. I wish I was living up north right now where things were shut down. That'd be closer to my heart, right? I have anything to
Right.
fight for down here.
I'm almost 100% opposite. In Washington State, and it's still cold. It's masks everywhere. So yeah.
Shut down to all pieces. Yeah. Ugh.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll get through it soon. But I want to talk a little bit about Earth Two, man. Like, so I know your involvement within Earth Two. When you first started getting into Earth Two, how did you get into Earth?
So that was interesting the way that happened. See, I was on Facebook, like a lot of people were, who just got into it cold, and it kept advertising this stuff at me. And of course, I've been paying attention to this sort of digital space for years, and so I look at it. I'm vaguely interested, but things on Facebook advertising are often scams, and I don't trust a lot of stuff that comes off that way because who would? But I keep seeing it and it keeps advertising at me. And over the course of 6 days, I get more and more curious and start looking into it, right? And over that period of time, I started noticing that by the time I started looking into it, I missed out on well, in the time I was looking at it, United States property tiles in there went from $4.50 a tile to $16 a tile. And that's why I knew I'd missed a bit of a train there. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Right.
it looked like Bitcoin or crypto, and it's just a different format.
Definitely.
So that's how it happened. That's how I got into it, and I palled around for a little while on Earth 2 Official back in the bad old days, the Wild West, when people weren't coming in there and harassing anybody in voice chat. They would moderate the text chat back then, but now it's you go in there and you're, oh, you said a bad word, which is an unfortunate side effect of popularization. I mean, if they'd have come in and shut things down immediately in Earth 2 Official back in those days, it would have killed a lot of their growth. And so they're lucky they didn't do that. Uh, and I ended up palling around with some guys, and then I ended up getting involved with the Guidebook Gaming, E2 the Boss, and my own group, formerly Turkey Gang. And then we've recently rebranded as E2 Bets after some, infighting. So it's been one of those deals.
Right. Definitely. And I've heard of the Turkey Gang. I didn't know that was actually your group.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Well, it's not.
Well,
I'm not
yeah.
Turkey, right? I'm not the
Right.
guy Turkey, but it was always sort of a democracy more than anything. So we kind of ended up moving away from that and going into E2 Bets, which has been it's been pretty good for us actually, because the rebranding, we've been able to kind of focus more on the actual analytical side of the Earth 2 game, which is great because we have some of the best some of the best guys in the game for that. People who just all day long they're just studying and researching cryptos and the other stuff like that. And of course, I take on the other portion of that, which is the virtual reality technology and kind of the ideas that are coming out of that, and sort of the spaces that need to be coalesced. You know what I mean? A synthesis, basically. Like, I know what VR chat looks like. I know what Second Life looks like. I've read the books, Snow Crash, Ready Player One, the other stuff like that. So I can kind of get a feel for that. And at the same time, I have a pretty good base in philosophy and freedom of speech movements and stuff like that. So I get it's like a foil, to their
Right.
analytical side.
So when you say we talked about a little bit about Second Life and VR chat, and then even like Ready Player One, how do you think like the VR side of things? How do you think that's going to play into Earth Two?
So as far as the VR goes, it's indispensable because, right, you could create right now. You can just go into Minecraft and have your own little space. You ain't got to pay for it, right?
Right.
Um, so it's kind of like you have to have all the modern technologies in order to make it useful to anybody. Because you could go into Minecraft and play Minecraft and have your own little plot. You can go into Second Life and go on there and interact with people and have your own little plot there and make items and sell them and everything else like that. Monetize that sort of space. You can go on a VR chat and dick around and have your different avatars there. And then of course that's the ultimate goal there. So if without it's not like they couldn't survive without VR, but man, I would assume that it would be the missing piece that would just kind of kill it. I mean, have you read Ready Player One?
I have not read it. I've only watched the movie myself.
Oh man, that's unfortunate. That movie was terrible. The book was great. The book was great. The author, I
I'll
I
add that
forget
to my
his
book
name.
list.
I forget his name, but the author has a wonderful knowledge of popular culture. I mean,
Okay.
just an absolute wonderful knowledge of popular culture. And then he's in there talking about the various things that they do in the game, which are just phenomenal as far as the envisioning goes. And then Snow Crash and the other, it's just cool. And so that's kind of where things are heading. And if they, I think that if they don't achieve it with the VR, that someone else will come along and do it right. So.
So let me ask you this: do you think that with Earth 2, do you think that it'll be more VR or AR, like augmented reality?
Oh no, there's no chance of it being augmented reality focused. Are you gonna go to the middle of the forest and start popping out your phone in a place with no cell phone reception? No, I mean
Right.
look, if you have a place with cell phone reception, you might have an AR app. I'm sure that they have a secret little app or something like that they're planning on revealing, and that'd be cool to walk around. But if it's a social game, and I believe it mostly will be social at the end of the day, because that's the nature of what we're talking about here. I mean, why would you buy land and
Right.
all that stuff if it wasn't intended to be private space? Are you gonna like walk up on someone's private area where they're having a private conversation and watch them in real time? No, I mean that doesn't sound particularly,
Right.
but maybe public spaces, that would be different, I guess. I would imagine that there will be some AR compatibility, but have you looked into V Park?
I have, and I know
That
how they do it
Yeah,
with the pictures and stuff. So that's kind of why maybe they could like tie it in with Earth 2, like how it's like some of
somewhat.
it AR and then some VR.
But I mean, if you give them too many things to focus on, then you've got, you're not even going to get the first thing right.
Right. And
So
with the, I know how slow the progression is right now. We don't want
ah, it,
to.
this is fast. This is extremely fast for a development. I
Yeah.
mean, the way that they're going about releasing things right now, they made the best decision they could have in the early days. I mean, releasing in November with the money they've received, which is over $40 million at this point.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We stopped keeping track some time ago, but the last count was like somewhere in the mid 30s,
Mhm.
and now they're probably heading towards the 50s. Frankly, maybe not. Who knows? It's been $100,000 a day for a while. Last I was looking at it, so they make big money off that sort of stuff. And now that they've released the game, phase one, they can start moving into phase two with all that money, which is a big
And
deal.
then honestly, with phase 2, if they have the mindset of phase 1, where they collect 5% off resource sales, stuff like that, that can
Hmm.
continue that growth for them.
It depends if they are capable of monetizing the resources immediately. There are going to be so many people with so many resources and so little to do. I bet you that there will be a period of time where there's going to be too many resources, and then afterwards they're going to change things up at the same time as they release more things to do with the resources, and then there'll be not enough resources, and then they'll have to eventually find the middle ground and balance like anything else.
So talking about the resources itself, now I know there's been so many theories on what's coming next, especially with Shane's cryptic tweets about possibly going crypto. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in terms of resources, look, it'll probably have. I imagine some sort of proprietary, like, oh, this is our magic wand, and in a sense, resource, and then you might have a couple of those, and then you'll have, maybe wood, water, uh, minerals in general. I hope they don't over diversify the mineral thing, and that would be terrible for the game, because of course it might be a kind of RTS at the top level, but I don't imagine that it is on the base level.
Right.
And in terms of the crypto, man, I mean, good God, you could do anything. You could build the thing into anything and have any sort of transactional process. I don't know how they're going to achieve that. I'm not a crypto expert, but I can look at it and say you're probably moving towards something like that, and you can, if you can make it happen properly, oh, you're you'll be shitting gold. I
Right.
mean, how do you fuck that up? How do you fuck this up? How do you fuck a game up like this? Well, there's a couple ways to fuck it up. You could fail to implement, monetization policies. And if you're putting crypto into the game, well, that's a good thing. So it keeps you from fucking the game up because you're focusing on, the ability to monetize, which means that you're more likely to implement things that allow you to monetize. Uh, so far as the other crypto stuff goes, I mean, have you been paying attention to any of the news with regards to, or the rumors rather, with regards to GoChain and the other stuff?
With like the leader following Shane and stuff like that.
Uh, Leader following chain, yeah, that sort of stuff, and then the other rumors. I'm not going to go too far into that stuff because I don't want it could be fake news. Who knows?
Right.
But the just the general atmosphere right now is trending towards GoChain being the thing that they're implementing, and I don't. Shane had a chance to disabuse us of that notion a while back, and rather than doing that, he released another riddle and said, "Hey, this one won't be solved so easily." So
Yeah.
people
Well,
are, yeah.
well, and then even in the Earth to general chat on Discord, someone asked, "Have you heard about GoChain?" And he replied, "Very funny." So that's like, maybe he knows it's a joke, or I don't know.
I, he's Shane is a lad. He's a little bit of a lad. I don't know if you've ever interacted with him uh, to that degree. I have, and I've watched him. I watched him having an unfortunate interaction with a dude at one point, talking about the world map and how it actually isn't all that difficult to implement something that that you take the terrain maps, the height fields, and everything else like that, and you create an algorithm to generate terrain in a world. And he, during a bad time for people because nobody was getting paid and everything else like that, he bet him, I think it was $5,000 or $50,000 or some crazy number like that. It was money the guy was betting him that he couldn't have it done in like a week. And the kid took the bet and then never showed his face again. But it was, I mean, he was basically antagonizing somebody. So he's a typical Aussie. And so I mean, when you see statements like that, you can kind of get a feel that, oh, might be something to this here.
Right.
He's not a German. He's not dry and lacking in humor. If a German said something like that, I might say, oh, okay, that's not. Don't even bother with GoChain.
Right.
Have you bought any GoChain out of
I have
interest?
not yet. So myself, I'm like, I've never even been into crypto yet, and
Oh
it's like,
God.
yeah,
Oh
I know,
God.
I know, I need to learn, I need to dive in. That's why I'm reading a couple books about it, kind of give
No,
me a feel
don't
for it.
bother. Forget about the books for a second. You need to go on
Just
the
head
three.
first, dive in.
No, I mean there's no reason not to. I would get into Coinbase. I would do all the verification processes. These things take time. Has anybody told you that verification takes a minute? It's
No,
not
not yet.
quick.
Okay.
Verification is extremely, extremely slow. It took me 3 months to get verified on Binance.
Oh
And
wow.
it takes like a couple weeks to get verified on Coinbase. Make a Coinbase account, make a Binance account, and afterwards make a KU Coin account as well. If you have PayPal, I think you can buy Bitcoin on PayPal as of now. I don't know how the transfer wallet thing works, but if you can buy Bitcoin, you can transfer it into another wallet and then start buying on KU Coin. But if you want to put money, U.S. fiat into any of the major platforms such as Coinbase or Binance, you have to be fully verified, and that's because the U.S. has odd rules with regards to cryptocurrency. I mean, of course, we are the petrodollar. We're the guys who control all the world's money. So, when you start taking that power away from us via crypto, it kind of starts fucking things up a little bit. Am I allowed to swear on this interview? Is that
It's okay.
it's just going on YouTube, right? We're not going on Twitch, right?
Right. Yeah,
I
we're
don't think
good.
I think you're allowed to cuss on Twitch anyway. So yeah, man, I would definitely recommend to you and your viewers, if you don't have those three accounts yet, KU Coin, Binance, and Coinbase, get on there and immediately start verifying on Coinbase and Binance. You don't need to be verified on KU Coin in the US because you're not going to use KU Coin as a place to put your money in. You're just going to use that to buy GoChain if you're interested. I bought GoChain 2 weeks ago and I made 33% gains already on it. And that's before
Wow.
anything's happened with it. Yeah, when you take $90 and turn that into 120 without doing anything, that's a pretty big deal. I wish I'd had $900 to invest in.
Right.
I'd have made $300 or so on and so forth. And this is just the story of crypto in general. I mean, if you'd have bought Dogecoin 3 months ago, I think it was something like 3 months ago, right?
Yeah.
You put $1,000 in Dogecoin 3 months ago, you'd be sitting on some money. I mean,
Yeah.
you'd be
A pretty penny.
it was
But it was up to almost 80 cents, if I'm not mistaken,
at one point, yeah.
when it was
Right
below a penny.
right now it's 36 cents per coin, I think. And
Okay.
if you were to buy that when it was 2 cents or 1 cent, or it was trading at nothing, you put $1,000. I mean, you'd be sitting on like 36 grand, right? I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. You can make 36 grand and just doing nothing. I mean,
Right.
good God. I've never done anything but made money on crypto. Even when I lost money on crypto, I made money on it because I just held, and that's the trick. If it goes down, just hold on, because eventually it's going to go back up. Did the same thing with Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin. I lost money on those 2 years ago, but I just held the stock, and bing bang boom, done. 2 years later, I was able to take it out when I needed it,
Right.
and it was pretty high. So
Nice.
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely have to. So Coinbase, Binance, and UK Coin.
No, KU coin.
KU Coin. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, coin. Right. So
Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about with Earth 2 itself. You know how the metaverse is. How do you think I know yesterday you actually showed me Second Life for the first time. How do you think Second Life and, let's say, even VR Chat, do you think that those could be involved within Earth 2, or do you think that what is your opinions
oh,
on how they could possibly contribute to each other?
so in terms of what's materialized already, we've seen what's possible in a metaverse like environment. If you haven't heard of Second Life, it was released in 2003, and it exists as a virtual Second Life. It's kind of sad, a little bit pathetic. The people on that game as a whole kind of touched in the head, right? But it's still fun, I don't want to disparage anybody, but no one going on Second Life is going to be like, "Hey, everybody here's real normal." But there's a $68 million in-game economy. Well, it's actually like a $500 million in-game economy with 900,000 concurrent users last year.
Oh,
Oh, not concurrent, but active users. And the platform allowed 68 million user generated. I'm sorry, $68 million to get transferred to content creators in game, because there's a free content creation system there called OpenSim, I believe it is, and they can upload stuff into the game and sell it on a marketplace or in an actual store. And then there's also because of that, the trade that occurred in there. And the money, the fact that there is money there, the game itself made $68 million, and then people were able to are able to do the performing arts. People are able to trade just about any type of service you can imagine that you could do digitally. And in addition, since the Linden works as sort of like almost a fiat currency in and of itself, based on the U.S. dollar or whatever else, you can
right.
buy and sell with that. I mean, if someone offered me 200,000 lindens, I think that's I want to say 200 USD.
Okay.
And to do something, I would say yes, because I know it's a good currency that can be traded back and forth for whatever reason. But it's you can see that things are possible on that thing. I mean, if someone creates a gazebo in OpenSim, they upload it into the game. Someone pays $2 for it and puts it onto their parcel, which they rent for probably $200 a month, and that parcel is equivalent to about 26. Well, no, the largest parcel would be equivalent to about 26 tiles by 26 tiles in Earth 2, or 56,000 square meters.
Okay.
So we kind of understand that there is a market for a social area that you can rent space or own space and buy things. There's a market for any type of trade you could ply in that. There's a market for there's obviously a demand for a currency, or at least a use for a currency that's digital that can be transferred in and out of the different other currencies. Of course, you have to pay fees, but whatever.
Right.
And in terms of VR chat, you can see that people want a virtual reality space to do the exact same thing in it. What VR chat has failed to do is monetize that space. And because of that, you see a lot of copyrighted, material in VR chat. People take copyrighted material out of other video games or out of other, 3D model simulations for whatever reason, and they upload it into VR chat after some tweaking, and now you can walk around as your favorite character from a video game. I hope we're able to do that as well in R2 at some point. As long as it's not being sold, there shouldn't be an issue. But of course, it depends on how open they intend on being. I mean, neither one of these platforms are decentralized under any pretense. But you just get a feel just walking around and that sort of thing. What's possible for Earth 2? I mean, you walked around there, you saw the billboards, you saw what people did. There's advertising, there's sex trade, there's there's just people hanging out in spaces, just kind of just doing whatever, doing what people do. I mean, can you imagine a world where that doesn't eventually become the thing people want to do for a little while anyway?
I never even heard of Second Life until you brought it up to myself, and it's something that it's interesting for sure. Now I do remember though with Earth 2, they did say that they want to keep it family friendly. But
I've spoken with a couple of developers on that in the past, and see it's not they don't have a consistent approach to that. I've spoken with Wolfgang about this. He says that he's socially liberal, and if people want to do what they want to do, then he doesn't care, just as long as it doesn't, hurt anybody else.
Right.
And so if they want to kill the game as fast as possible, they will keep people from, doing what they want to. They'll remove user-generated content, or they'll restrict the ability to create user-generated content that's PG-13 or R-rated or something like that. If they want to kill the game before it's even started, they'll remove the ability to do that sorts of things. Because honestly, the communities that make these things possible, to make games like Second Life possible or VR chat possible, are the communities that are ultimately, well, they're doing what humans do. I mean, are you familiar with? You're familiar with furries as far as that goes, right? You know what those are.
I've heard you use the term, but I'm not exactly
You,
what the terminology is.
you don't know what a furry is?
Nope.
You got to be playing with me here. You live in Washington State, brother. So a furry is someone who's part of a fandom of people who want to dress up like animals and basically, just.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Those yahoos. Well, where can you do that in the real world? You can do that at a convention, but are you going to do that at home all day? No, but you can go onto a virtual reality sim and sit there as a foxkin or whatever and talk to 8 other people who are dressed up like animals at the same time. And you can kind of live out whatever fantasy you're trying to live out. And people do the same thing with anime. There's a whole anime.
Yeah.
You saw that last night with the anime girl that we were talking to. There's entire sims where that's basically just all the people are dressed up like that.
Right,
like
okay.
anime. And there's entire areas like that. And then you got of course you've got areas where there's nothing but sex work occurring, and then you've got areas where it's just old people just hanging out and playing bingo. It's crazy. But I mean, if they want to rock their own world before they even get started, yeah, step on your own tail. Screw yourself. They don't want to do that.
So, I know you wrote an article in E2 News about freedom of speech. Now, that kind of plays into this. Like, what are your thoughts specifically with Earth 2 on freedom of speech?
My thoughts with Earth 2 are the same thing. Same thoughts I have with anything on freedom of speech. If you restrict speech in your early days, what you're going to end up with is not a Facebook or a Twitter, but you'll end up with a frank speech or I don't know what the other platforms are. I mean, there's a million platforms that didn't go very well, and for a number of reasons. But so the thing about Facebook and Twitter as of now, and the other platforms, is that they didn't start off by censoring people willy-nilly and removing people's ability to talk or what have you. They've done that now that they're too big to fail, essentially. They're so big that they're ubiquitous. Everybody uses Messenger. Twitter is where all the politicians are. They feel like they can't be stopped, so they just start going in and doing whatever they want now because they're so powerful that that's not a problem for them. At least they perceive so. if Earth 2 starts out as a platform which does not allow free speech, doesn't allow freedom of interaction, are you going to go on there? Are you really going to go on there and hang out? If someone says to you, like, in the real time, like, oh yeah, well, you can't have a conversation about, say, slavery, but that is in any way someone could perceive it as offensive. Are you going to go on there and have a conversation, or are you going to go somewhere else?
Well, I'll be honest. With me personally, I probably wouldn't go on there too, trying to have a conversation about slavery.
Well, no, I mean,
Uh,
these just comes up. So let's say
yeah,
you have a conversation about, the Gaza Strip and Israel and Palestine. Well, there's two groups of people who could be offended there. You could have the position where you're pro-Israel and you could offend the Palestinians, or you could have a position where you're pro-Palestinian and offend Israelis. And so, is that going to be an offensive thing? Or are we going to be unable to talk about that in a way? Well, there's a lot of places in the world right now where those discussions are considered inappropriate, and having the wrong opinion on those things can get you banned, demonetized, deplatformed. I mean, you want to go into a place where you can't have a discussion about the current regulations with regards to the shutdown. Well, a lot of things on Facebook you're not allowed to say about perhaps the virus as far as that goes. Uh, and it's just there's a lot of things like that all over the
no,
world, right?
I understand that. So what would your thoughts be like instead of for like let's say like an open world where it's VR. Let's say like if you have your own private land and if you want to talk about whatever you want on your own private land, that's okay. But if you're like on other lands and let's try to keep it more
My thoughts on that are that the people who own the land are the ones who are ultimately in charge of what discussions occur on that land.
right.
Uh, so I think that Earth 2 itself should just take a step back completely from moderation. I don't believe that Earth 2 should be moderating anything that's not illegal. So if it's illegal speech or spam or intentional, like, griefing, I mean, client crashers and stuff like that, that should be stopped in its tracks, and the account should be, suspended, and warnings given out and everything else like that. Uh, and that should just be how it happens. But in terms of legal speech, and I mean in the American sense, because we are the freest country in the world when it comes to speech, generally speaking, at least for the largest number of people. Uh, I think that should be. I think that should be the gold standard. Essentially, we should never be regulating people's ability to speak in any capacity in terms of the centralized structure that controls the game. Um, and if you want to block someone from your area because they said the naughty word or something like that, or they have an opinion you don't like, that's just freedom of interaction. This is your property, it's your space, it's your environment, it's your group. That's up to you. But it shouldn't be up to the game. Especially if I've come in under the pretense that I own my property. Why exactly should I be moderated on my own sim? I mean, good God. Again, do you want to just kneecap yourself right off the bat? Why not just shut the whole thing down right now? What would be the point? Um, but in terms of public spaces having moderation, well, what is a public space? So there's going to be unowned tile, right?
Right.
Only moderation should exist in those spaces. Should be, if it's illegal speech, and perhaps there shouldn't be any nudity in those areas as well, because I think that the only places that should have that sort of content should be ones that are specifically designated adult. And in Second Life, they have a similar policy where they basically moderate in this way. They say, you have a general area, you have a moderate area, PG-13, and then they have adult, and you designate those areas as you see fit. Uh, and in VR chat, they have a similar policy. Basically, nothing public is allowed for nudity, and that makes sense because there's a lot of kids on there, and they don't have a moderation system to see who's a kid and who's not. The rest of the internet, of course, you just say, "Oh, yes, I am 18." Wink, wink. But on VR chat, it's harder to do that, of course, because hey, I can listen to you. You sound like a 13-year-old kid. You got the intellect of a 13-year-old kid. If it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, you know what I mean? But in terms of that they have private environments people go into, and they engage in whatever type of acts they want to. There are no there are speech rules in VR chat. I think generally speaking, they don't appreciate hate speech or what have you, hate speech. But that's that's not such a big deal. The way that they moderate things in VR chat is if you get muted or blocked enough times, you end up going down in your status, and eventually you get to the point where you're automatically blocked by the game, which of course that leads to abuse. I mean, if someone could have a targeted campaign against you to have enough people block you or something like that, but
Right.
that would take a lot of energy and time, because there's so many different environments and they're not connected. They're not they're interspatial. You know what I mean? They're not one another. Let me see. Am I using that word right? Interspatial. Let's see. Yeah. To make or occupy space between things, space between everything. Yeah, it's interspatial. It's set aside from one another. So, I mean, does that answer your question? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I do see that, and I know there's a lot of different views on, especially freedom of speech, and how with a worldwide community, something like, for me, for example, I want to make sure everybody is inclusive. I want to make sure that no matter, if you're from whichever part of the country, you can come and you can feel like you're included.
Okay, but I
Um,
feel excluded by that statement by itself. Because if I can't speak my mind, I'm excluded by the nature of that. So how many people are you going to make happy? Are you going to make everybody happy? Are you going to make this group of people over there happy? Are you going to make that group of people over there happy? Whose policies are you going to start invoking? Well, who's happy? When you attempt to make everybody happy, you make nobody happy. That's how that works. So what you do is you basically allow people to set themselves aside. No, so there's an interesting thing going on in terms of inner city development and everything else like that. So you have a situation where it just turns out that people tend to move and congregate amongst people that they visually feel are similar to one another, right?
right.
So black people are going to continuously move into neighborhoods where they perceive the comfort of having other black people around them. And white people do the same, Asian people do the same. People just tend to do this to themselves because that's just how they interact with each other. Or what are you going to do to stop that? Are you going to make it illegal for Asian people to move into an Asian population? Well, the quota for Asian people has been met today in this particular neighborhood, and you're no longer allowed to buy real estate here. You can own it, but you can't live there. What are you going to do? And so it comes down to the same sort of situation when it comes to trying to appease people in terms of what speech makes everybody happy. I would attempt to make nobody happy in terms of I wouldn't try to make any special rules or provisions so that everybody could be happy. What's offensive today is not going to be offensive tomorrow. What's offensive tomorrow is not going to be offensive today. I remember a time when communism, the very idea of it, was offensive to most of the nation because it means taking property from somebody and depriving someone of their rights and everything else like that. There's a time when we felt that way in this country. Nowadays, you walk around openly with a Che Guevara T-shirt, a man who slew homosexuals with a passion, and you can somehow still be an advocate for LGBTQ rights at the same time as you're doing that. So, do you want to stop that person from wearing that Che Guevara T-shirt, or do you want to simply just make it so that the game only focuses on illegal content and let everybody else make that decision for themselves? Because you could still have the space that you're talking about, a generalized area that would make everybody
Right.
happy, but it would be served up by the community rather than by the centralized power of E2.
Right. I love getting your views on this stuff, and I love reading your articles. And I understand that you've written 2 articles so far. I have not had a chance to read your first article. Are you planning on writing more articles
Oh
for
yeah,
E2 News?
I've got articles set up to write right now. I just haven't done it. I've been too busy with my own business as far as just work and everything else like that. And on top of that, I've got my own YouTube channel that I mess around with occasionally.
Definitely.
I'm gonna put a disclaimer out there for anybody who's not aware. Uh, I mess around. I have fun. I play with people, and we get around like that. That's just how things are. There was a time, it wasn't so long ago, where making a joke and everything else like that was funny. That was a little while back, and nowadays, just having fun is like, oh, you're a terrible person. You did X, Y, and Z. Um, that's what I'm here for. I advocate against the tyranny of the masses, and I don't particularly feel like putting up with anybody's bullshit. That's just the name of the game for me. If
Right.
if you're if you're attempting to push your opinion on somebody in a way that makes you know makes it impossible for a person to exist in a space which is otherwise common to the public and it's not illegal or something like that, I will most likely stand up and say, I don't like that actually. And that pushes a lot of people's buttons. People don't like that sort of thing because nobody likes being told they're wrong.
Right.
But, I mean, I have to put up with that often. I've been wrong a lot. And, it gets easier to admit you're wrong. And I hope that people start realizing that you could admit you're wrong, but people just tend to close themselves up and imagine, harsher and harsher and stricter environments where it's harder for them to do.
Right. Well, I will drop a link to your YouTube channel as well into the description so people can check you out as well.
I'm not sure I'd do that.
Well, I think this is great because it does bring a different personality into pretty much into their viewpoints, so they can understand each other's viewpoints. That's one thing that I love talking to people, just even talking to people, just to understand how they think that way or why they think that way. Doesn't mean that I'm going to start thinking that way, but just so I understand, what their thoughts on. That's why I do that. So,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the only reason you should ever need to censor somebody or to get away from somebody is either they're completely heinous and just making a scene all the time, or you can't contend with their ideas and you don't want to have to try to change your mind.
right. All right, so we're down to our final question. It's the would you rather section. In this, I want you to answer which one you would rather do and why. So, would you rather live in space or live under the water?
If you're talking about the void of space, I'll definitely choose the water. But if you want me to live out in any of the random planets or what have you in space, yeah, I think I'll choose space. It just depends.
Space exploration is something that I love, and I know recently with the rovers going to Mars, I think that's amazing, and it's pretty cool to see that science that can do that now. So I would have to probably agree with you on that.
I'd say so, brother. I mean, have you paid attention to the way that things worked? I mean, initially, some of the only people that were able to explore some of the new world were people who were funded by the large governments and the monarchies of Europe. And eventually that changed, and it became quite a libertarian space over here for quite a while. And I imagine that other places, as we move on, will probably follow that exact same sort of trend. It'll take corporations and huge amounts of power and huge amounts of energy and heavy industry to get us there, and eventually we'll get to the point where we can kind of do it ourselves, and bang bang boom, we'll have another renaissance, just like the renaissance of the industrial era and beforehand.
Right. Well, Frazier Danger, I thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, getting your viewpoints. Maybe again we can discuss more. But until then, everyone that's watching at home, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and thank you everyone for watching. Bye.
Hey, thank you, man. Take it easy.